morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Brooke Rollins, and I have had the great privilege and blessing of leading this organization for the last 12 years. Today is a big day, and I have already seen so many wonderful friends who've come from so far to be here with us as we dedicate Liberty's new address. So thank you all so much for being here. Governor Abbott, General Paxton, Commissioner Bush, Commissioner Porter, Senator Graham. Where is Senator Graham? Did we find him? Oh, there he is. Senator Graham was just honored this morning in the Texas House, which was really exciting. Wendy Graham, our chairman of our board, Kim Stevens, whose husband and whose legacy we honor with the Michael S. Stevens Building, is here. My mom is here in the back somewhere. My sweet husband is here. It's just a big day, and we're so grateful for everyone being here and everything so many of you had to do with today. Please accept my most sincere welcome to this grand opening of the Michael S. Stevens Building at the Texas Public Policy Foundation's new headquarters, just 2 blocks from the Capitol. We are open for business, and oh, it's so exciting. What a perfect day. Today, of course, April 21st, it's Aggie Muster, but it's also San Jacinto Day, probably a little more importantly, but not much. But today we officially dedicate America's new headquarters for the righteous cause of liberty. I want to take a moment to speak specifically, just for a few minutes, of why San Jacinto matters. Today, of course, April 21st, we know, but we chose today, it was entirely deliberate, entirely intentional, that we are celebrating this dedication of the Michael Stevens Building today. San Jacinto and its battle are not just historical curiosities. They matter, and they matter now. To illustrate, I want to walk you briefly through the course of the Texas Revolution in 1836, just 179 years ago. On March 2nd, 1836, with nothing standing between them and the power of General Santa Anna, but a doomed Alamo garrison and a lot of prayers, the word went out to the world that Texas was a nation, free and independent. The Republic of Texas was born that day on March 2nd, 1836, but it was not yet won. The same day, Texans lost at Agua Dulce. 4 days later, the Texans lost at the Alamo. 17 days later, the Texans lost at Coleto. 19 days later, the Texans lost at Capano. And 25 days later, the Texans were massacred at Goliad. But exactly 50 days later, on April 21st, 1836, 179 years ago today, Texas won at San Jacinto, and that won it all. The simple willingness to keep fighting, no matter the cost, no matter the odds, no matter the sacrifice, was the prerequisite to real independence. And the litany of defeats in the desperate winter and spring of 1836 turned out to be the foundations of victory. And that is why we celebrate San Jacinto Day, because from it we learn that victory requires hard work, because from it we learn that defeat must never breed despair. Because from it, we are reminded that liberty requires our defense, always. And because from it, we gained everything that is precious to us now in Texas. The Michael Stevens Building is open for business today, April 21st, on San Jacinto Day, because the Michael Stevens Building is meant to defend and extend the heritage of San Jacinto in this generation and every generation to come. It is my great pleasure to ask to the podium Justice Don Willett to bless the meal. And as we all know, Justice Willett's a great friend of freedom, appointed to the Supreme Court in 2005, elected in 2006, Deputy Assistant Attorney General at the U.S. Department of Justice, and has just been such an incredible friend for all that is good and righteous in the state of Texas. Please help me welcome our Texas Supreme Court Justice Don Willett.
With a suit like this, who else would be called on to do the invocation today, right?
We'll take it.
20 years ago, I was a moonlighting baby lawyer. I'm moonlighting as a senior fellow at the fledgling shoestring budget Texas Public Policy Foundation. And fast forwarding 2 decades, I never in my wildest dream would have imagined this miraculous day, the product of immeasurable hard work and bottomless generosity and just a lot of divine happenstance. So pray with me, please. Father God, on this day celebrating liberty, the liberty won at San Jacinto, and the liberty championed by those who work in this magnificent building, thank you for your infinite goodness. President Reagan described America as this last and greatest bastion of freedom, and Texas is at the vanguard. We recognize, God, that liberty is not provided by government. Liberty pre-exists government. It is not a gift from earthly rulers. It is our natural, God-given, unalienable birthright. So God, bless our leaders at every level of government and every branch of government. Give us all discernment. Give us the wisdom to know what is right and the courage to do it. We all yearn to be passionate seekers and doers of your will, and we pray that our every thought and word and deed will delight you. So Lord, equip us to be noble servants of good cheer, good-heartedness, and good ideas to lift those around us, ideas rooted in what Edmund Burke called a fierce spirit of liberty. So God, we rejoice and give thanks for all the blessings of life, for food in a world where many walk in hunger, and for friends in a world where many walk alone, and for faith in a world where many walk in darkness. And we pray all this in the mighty and majestic name that is above all names. Amen.
Thank you. Please enjoy your lunch, and we'll be back up in just a few minutes. Thank you so much, Justice Willett. And I want to say just a few more words about this building and the people who helped us get here today. But before I do that, I think it's important, and so many of you have commented on our extraordinary staff. We just hired our 48th employee last week. We have posted for several more. The Texas Public Policy Foundation is no longer just working for a free Texas. We are working to export the Texas model to the rest of the country and to the world, and what an incredible gift it is to be able to do that every single day. You know, I look back on 2015, and just so you know, because so many of you follow our work, you invest in our work, you understand a little bit what we do, but I want to give you a little bit of breadth and depth to that. Our scholars, many of whom are sitting in this room today, have written and created, just in 2015, 76 original publications. That's nearly one for every day of this year. Our scholars have testified 119 times on issues such as taxes and school choice and the EPA, and you name the issue. We're there 119 times, more than one per day every day of this year. Our scholars have met with legislators and their staff 1,927 times, nearly 20 times every day since the beginning of the year. We have written and placed 135 opinion pieces in print and online. That's more than one op-ed every day somewhere in the country and the world. Well, I know Red wants to know what we did in our spare time. We'll talk about that after lunch. But this is it just goes to show, with a 400 million aggregate media audience, Margaret Thatcher said, in order to win the election, you have to win the debate. And my friends, this organization and all of our friends around the country fighting for freedom, we are winning the debate. So I thank you for that. We matter here at TPPF and so many of our friends because Texas matters, and we talk about this quite a lot. We matter because a dedicated group of patriots from across Texas and the nation have joined together to make today possible. They've given of their time, their talent, and a little bit of their treasure to make this day happen, and we are so grateful for them. I want to just take just a few moments to mention some of the bigger investments and the people who've really made this possible today. I first began talking to Bill Gordon, who's here with his very soon-to-be newlywed, Sandy Gordon. Will you guys stand up? Just a few. In fact, y'all getting married Saturday, aren't you, Sandy? Yes, this is the Joe Hogsett Amphitheater. The late Chissa Gordon, who is Bill's mother, whom I became very close with in Fort Worth, and for years talked about how she wanted a place to honor her father. Her father, Joe Hogsett, who had been a pioneer and one of the founders of Fort Worth, Texas, and truly from his work through the years had made such a difference and made Fort Worth the great city it is today. And Chissa was so excited when she came to visit Austin and saw the space, and she was a UT Longhorn Red. So we've got a few of them here today, but she couldn't believe the opportunity to do this project and the opportunity to name the key naming spot in the building after her dad. So she unfortunately passed away at the great age of 95 last February, so she didn't get to see, and she isn't here today, but it is in her honor that we continue, and I think she'd be very proud, Bill. I'm so grateful for your support. Thank you. Next, I want to recognize the Hertzstein Foundation. They're sitting right here to my left. Albert and Ethel Hertzstein, who are not with us, they passed away, but they left a legacy in a foundation. And they didn't have children, but they were the epitome of the American dream, basically penniless and starting from nothing, and turned into basically a real estate empire and other great businesses in Houston, Texas. And when they left, they said they wanted their name to be a part and to be associated with freedom and liberty and the great American dream, so that people and children and young adults that follow in their footsteps will have the same opportunity. The Hertzstein Foundation and Dr. Topek and our board member George Strake and everyone who's here has been an incredible part of this process. Starting when we first bought the building across the street, many of you know, we started at 916 Congress. Within a year, realized it wasn't going to be big enough for the work we had to do, sold it and bought this process. Started this process. The Hertzstein Foundation, Dr. Topek, George Strake, thank you all so much. The Hertzstein lobby downstairs. What can I say about my friend Red McCombs that hasn't already been said? When I went to visit Red about this project, and we talked about the vision and what we were trying to accomplish, and I'll never forget, he looked at me and he said, "Brooke, that project is going to change everything." He said, "That building, in putting down a permanent marker for liberty and for freedom and for everything that is great about this country, this building will change the trajectory of this organization and this state and this country." And I believe he's right. In fact, sitting in the Red McCombs Event Center today is one of the great honors of my professional life. Help me thank Red McCombs. Our wonderful board member Chaz Neely from San Antonio, who wrote the very first check to TPPF 26 years ago, behind, of course, Dr. Leininger, for $5,000 to help get us started. He never wavered for a second. When we talked to him about this project, he said, "I am all in," and you will notice the beautiful come and take it wood carving that's in the lobby floor in front of the elevators, and that is because of Chaz and his beautiful wife, Tricia Neely. Chaz, thank you so much. Wendy Grimes probably doesn't want me to do this, but I feel as if I have to. In talking to Cecilia Leininger and Dr. Jim, we wanted to honor and include Bible verses throughout the building, because truly, that's why we're here. And Wendy, in talking to her, loved the idea so much, she offered to make an investment to make it happen and to make the building even better than we had already hoped. Wendy is an extraordinary pillar in the civic life of Houston, a board member of the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and a great patriot. Please help me thank Wendy Grimes. And David. He's not here, though. Billie Jean and Terrence Murphy, some other newlyweds. Something's in the air. Here at TPPF, where Billie Jean and Terrence, where are you all? There you are. Terrence came to our groundbreaking a year ago, had never been to a TPPF event before. Is that right, Terrence? That's right. And if I may speak for you, what you have told me, you were so moved and were so overwhelmed at what we were doing here and this opportunity to build something permanent for freedom, that you wanted to be a big part of it. And we're so grateful to you and to your lovely bride, Billie Jean, for making that possible. Thank you so much. Jim Henry, who you'll get to hear more from at the Policy Primer, if you stick around for that at 1:30, is one of the great and legendary entrepreneurs, especially in West Texas. He's a bit of a legend in the oil and gas industry. Paula and Jim Henry are patriots. They have dedicated their life to making Midland and the state better. They are behind, if I may say so, Jim, our new litigation effort to really move into the court system as the left does so well and begin to push back on the federal government and other areas. And also, we're a big part of this building. Jim and Paula, it's an honor to continue your legacy. Thank you so much. And I have to recognize the Sparks family from Midland. There's a lot of them. Everyone wave. There's a whole, but there they are. Oh, there are two tables. The Sparks family, talk about West Texas oil and gas legends. What they've done entrepreneurially and in the business world is extraordinary, but their heart and their passion for the state and this country is even more impressive. And when I called Dawn, kind of the patriarch of the family, and said, we would love for you to consider sponsoring the Travis letter on the back of the Hogshead Amphitheater, because what an awesome part of the building. It didn't take long for them all to say, absolutely, yes, we're in. Sparks, thank you so much. What a gift to have you as part of this ride. Thank you. And for those of you, Kyle Stallings, Kyle, where are you? Another great board member from Midland. Be sure before you leave to go to the grand staircase in the Hertzstein lobby and look up at the wall, because what you will see is truly one of the masterpieces of art for Texas history that we have. It's a McCardle. It's from 1901, and it is for and painted about the Battle of San Jacinto, April 21st, 1836. It is an extraordinary piece of art, and Kyle, what a gift to have you and Jamie give that to us for a short amount of time. We'll see how long, but to loan it to us, maybe a little longer, but also to invest your treasure in the Creighton Lomax boardroom, which is a beautiful, beautiful spot on the second floor in honor of your grandparents. It's really great to do that. Kyle, thank you so much. And I'm actually going to ask Kim Stevens to come forward. I have just two more. Kim is the widow of the late Michael Stevens. And for those of us in the room who knew Michael well, Dick Weekly, of course, is here in his honor. We have a whole table of Michael Stevens' interests. Michael was a board member at TPPF when I was hired, and a great success out of Houston. Much like so many of you in this room, he didn't come from a lot, but with the American dream and the great ethic of hard work and belief in himself, he was able to build a pretty extraordinary business in Houston and around the state, really. And the family that he and Kim made together was just incredibly special. Michael left us far too soon, just a number of years ago, and the very first person I ever talked to about a permanent home for liberty, not even Dr. Jim, not even Wendy, was Michael S. Stevens. He came to visit us in our old office space across the street, which we thought at the time was really fancy. We thought we were in the Four Seasons. Before that, we basically didn't even have office space. And I looked at him and I said, Michael, someday I want to be able to do something permanent for liberty. And he looked at me with those sparkling blue eyes and he said, Brooke, I think you can do it, and I think it's going to be awesome. So when he passed away, the first person that I thought of that we had to honor and carry on his legacy was Michael Stevens. And to the beautiful Kim's credit, she saw the vision from the beginning, and she helped make it happen. And I mean this when I say we probably wouldn't be here today if she hadn't given a wholehearted yes. Let's do it. Let's honor Michael. And I'll be so proud to have his name on that building forever. Please help me thank Kim Stevens. And then finally, Dr. Jim Leininger and Cecilia, who was probably the second person I talked to about the project. And there's so much to be said about a man and his lovely partner and what they have done and meant for the state of Texas, not only in founding the Texas Public Policy Foundation, but investing untold treasure in making children's lives better. And may we forever honor you, Dr. Jim, and you, Cecilia, and may we forever remember everything that you have done for this state and this country and really the world in your committed, unwavering, passionate defense for freedom. and everything that that means. And you've planted so many trees under whose shade you mostly will never sit, but from the person who has been able to fulfill, hopefully in some way, your vision over these last dozen years, there is nothing I'm more proud of than to carry on your legacy. So thank you for your big part in making today happen. Woo! So, and by the way, there are many more hands and many more checks that were written, and thank you all so very much for all who've been a part of this and made today happen. It is just, it's a $20 million project. We are literally within inches of hitting that mark, and it was on a wing and a prayer, honestly. We hired a consultant that told us, maybe you can raise $3 million. On a good day, you can raise $5 million. Could never get to 8 based on, everything that those guys look at, the length of our organization and our database. And now to look back and realize that we have raised almost $20 million in just a matter of about 18 months means to me that it's not me, and it's not, although our development team is amazing, it's not our wonderful board, that there's greater hands at work. And for that, I will be forever grateful and so thankful for today and what it means. But speaking of the great leader of our organization, I want to ask Wendy Graham to come to the podium to introduce our speakers. Wendy, as I mentioned earlier, Senator Graham is here, and he was honored on the Texas floor this morning for his great leadership and what he has meant to freedom and to Texas and to this country. And in his honor, I know this is a big deal, we put his favorite candy in everyone's candy jar. So everyone can thank Phil Graham for the $400 in M&Ms we bought. The staff said it was fun. They said, Brooke, $400 of M&Ms came, and I said, oh no, send them back. Send them back. I love Phil Graham, but that's way too much money to spend on M&Ms. But they said we couldn't send them back. So I hope everyone enjoys every morsel of their M&Ms. Thank you, Phil Graham, for your extraordinary service, and you're just such an inspiration to get to work with every day. And most importantly, you give us Wendy Graham to be our leader every day. So thank you. Wendy Graham.
Oh, you're wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to our new building, and we appreciate you coming to our party to help us celebrate this great new building. And we are making a statement, aren't we? This building is a statement, just like Red McComb said, but also it's another statement. It's a recognition that we know that to have liberty, we've got to fight for it. Thomas Jefferson said the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and we want people to know that we're here, and we're here speaking for the average consumer, the average taxpayer, the person who doesn't have a big lobbying firm out trying to get the government to push things in their direction, et cetera. So we're really, really pleased to have this. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you all. And by that, I mean you are the people who made it happen. I'm talking about the staff. I'm talking about my fellow members of the board, volunteers, and donors. This project has taken time, effort, and money. Lots of money. Thank you so much. Because what's happened is that we've become successful in affecting policy and helping promote freedom and free markets and property rights and the rule of law and limited government. And we've been successful. And people are understanding the importance of us being here and providing the information to being here. And so that's why we're here. And this statement is not only that we recognize that we need to be vigilant eternally, but also that we are going to redouble our efforts because we have this space. Just think of how much more efficient and effective we can be and how many more people we can reach. And believe me, we intend to do so. So thank you for helping making it a reality. And let me just say one more thing. We have another person we have to thank a lot, Brooke Rollins. Let me tell you what. I believe in Providence, and it was Providence that made me call up and find Brooke and get her to come to head this organization, and that was 12 years ago. I don't know how long, a long time ago anyway, and here we are today. It wouldn't have been done without Brooke. So thank you, Brooke, and she's the reason why we're all here. You know, a few months ago, we were at the Alamo celebrating our 25th anniversary of TPPF. Many of you were there too. Brooke mentioned it. And today it is San Jacinto Day. And I think it's really appropriate that it is San Jacinto Day. You know, you think of the Alamo and the Battle of San Jacinto, and it was darkness and despair in the middle of hard times. And San Jacinto Day, it was a new day. And indeed, quite a new day. And let me tell you how important that was. It was a new setting. It really set the stage for a new Texas, the Republic of Texas, but also eventually the state of Texas and New Mexico and Arizona and Nevada and California and Utah and parts of 3 or 4 other states. So that did have an effect on America and on the world. And this building is setting the stage for TPPF going forward. It is. We're going to have a bigger impact for Texas and New Mexico and Arizona and Nevada. You get the gist. And Brooke said the world. She wasn't just being Brooke. It is really true that some of our programs are going global. Other countries are copying our models for right on crime, for example. So we're talking about big impact for liberty and for the things that are so important for all of us and in our lives and for our founding fathers. So thank you for helping make this special day and for being here. And so today we have some superstars going to speak to us. Let me first introduce our governor. Ken has to go first. All right, well, we're going to save our governor for after, our AG. And let me tell you about both of our superstars who are here to speak to us today. I mean, they are superstars. They've been fighting in all branches of the government, the Texas government, for our liberties and for limited government. And they have not only been there, they have been on the ground, and they have a record of accomplishment. And whether or not it's fighting EPA or every other kind of bureaucracy, and for that we are very lucky and very proud. Let me first introduce Ken Paxton, who was born in Minot, North Dakota. Now, I've been in Minot, North Dakota in January, but he did come back and graduate from Baylor with both a BA and an MBA, and then went to law school in Jefferson's footsteps at the University of Virginia. He's practiced law and worked for J.C. Penney in the law as counsel, and was in both the State House and the State Senate, and now is our 51st Attorney General. And we're so proud to have you. He has 4 children and a wife taking care of them, too. So please help me welcome our 51st Attorney General. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Well, happy San Jacinto Day. You know, Brooke, this room really is remarkable. It's beautiful, the building's beautiful, but what's even more remarkable is the people sitting in the audience. And I was just looking around the room and thinking about what Texas would be like if the people in this room weren't here and weren't engaged in what's going on. We would have a different state. I mean, even just sitting at my table, think about Texas without Red McCombs. Think about Texas without Dick Weekly and what he's accomplished. Think about Texas without Wendy Grimes. It would be a different place. So I appreciate what you've done for the state of Texas and what you're doing for this organization. I also have to mention Phil Graham. I had the opportunity to sit next to him on the 25th anniversary, and he said, I'm going to give you some advice, and when the senator gives you advice, you listen. And he said, I told every new senator this. He said, you're going to go through tough times in your battles with whatever job you're doing, and he said, but someday you're going to be sitting on the you're going to be sitting in your chair at the nursing home rocking away, and it's those battles that you're going to remember fondly. So enjoy the process and enjoy the job. So Senator Graham, I just want you to know wherever you are, I just want you to know I'm taking your advice, and I appreciate that advice. I was not going to tell this story about my kids, but I have to because Brooke and I were actually on stage last week at a Republican Women's Club event, about 1,000 women, maybe 800, all in red. And I told this story about my kids, kind of what they're doing. I have a 16-year-old who's just driving now, and then I've got 2 kids at Baylor, a son who's about to graduate and go off to California and work in the computer game industry, and then I have a daughter who's a sophomore at Baylor, and she's a nursing student. She's going to be in the Air Force. And then finally, I have my high school daughter, right, Brooke, that she's graduating from high school this year, but she is not going to college. She's going to Texas A&M. Just had to do that for you, Brooke. Yes. We're excited about this. I want you to know that. On my AG salary, A&M is a little more affordable than Baylor. So, well, the mission of this organization, promote and defend liberty, personal responsibility, free enterprise, by educating, affecting policymakers in the Texas public policy debate with research and outreach. And I can tell you, as somebody that's been in the legislature, that I've seen this organization do that. And I've had this experience realizing that there's so many organizations in Austin and all over this country that have a purpose, but they forget their purpose. And one of the great things about this organization is it has never forgotten its purpose. And it's always good policy over politics. And I want to give you a couple examples of that. 2003, I came in with the first class, first Republican House since Reconstruction. And Governor Perry, Tom Craddock, who was a speaker, and David Dewhurst, our lieutenant governor, put together an amazing legislative platform and program. And TPPF was behind the scenes working that platform. And I think ultimately what we passed in those years made a difference for the last over decade with all the jobs that have been created and the opportunity that we have in Texas. I think was fundamentally set up by how we worked that session and what we did to create an opportunity for people to come work and to create wealth and to create jobs. And that was TPF behind the scenes working with the legislature to do that. But I want you to know that it's not always like that. We came up with the next session came up, and suddenly a few Republican leadership people were trying to pass a payroll tax. And despite the fact that there was a lot of pressure to go forward with that, we felt like it would not create jobs, but destroy jobs. And TPPF stood up and said no, and they worked with me and other legislators to stop that from happening. A few years later, 2009, there was a big effort to create a huge transportation tax. And there was going to be very little accountability for where this money went. It's going to be controlled by non-elected officials, billions of dollars, all kinds of new taxes, all kinds of new fees, including possibly taxing you on how many miles you drove. Really crazy stuff, but it was rolling through the legislature, passed out of the Senate easily. I came to TPPF. It looked very bleak. We were fighting every day to try to stop this, and with the help of Talmadge Heflin and Justin Keener and other people working at this organization, by the grace of God, we were able to kill that massive new tax, which would have been a complete waste of money, and we would have had no accountability for where it was going. So I just want you to know this organization is not here blowing in the wind. And it has been an organization that I have great respect for because of their willingness to stand in the fight no matter what the political winds are blowing. And of course, you guys have all been watching as the Obama administration over the last few years has been assaulting Texas and really the nation. And you're going to get to hear from our governor, of course, and you know what he says. He gets up in the morning, he goes to the office, he sues the federal government, and he goes home. Well, I want you to know that that tradition is continuing with us. Thank you. A few years ago, of course, we're all familiar with Obamacare. The states had a choice. They could go with a state health care exchange, get lots of money from the government called subsidies, employer mandate would set in, individual mandate would set in, or they could say no and go under the federal exchange. Well, there was a lawsuit brought about that, and of course that went to the Supreme Court, and if we're not in the state health care exchange, it's very difficult to argue based on the plain language of the statute that you're actually subject to Obamacare. So we have this lawsuit going on. And this is typical of the type of issues we've been dealing with. The IRS came in and said, despite the clear language of the law, they said, even though this language applies to state health care exchanges, and even though 37 states did not adopt that, they're still subject to this language under the federal healthcare exchange. That's the type of fight we're having. And as you know, November 20th, President Obama issued an executive action related to amnesty. Despite saying for 6 years that he had no authority to do it, that it had to be Congress, that he didn't have a magic wand, that he was not king, he said this from the time he started campaigning till 2014, August of 2014. And then in November, he came out, he completely changed the law, and he said, I'm changing the law. And not only did he allow these people to stay illegally, but he also created all kinds of benefits, including allowing them to qualify for Social Security, Medicare, earned income tax credit, and of course, creating huge costs for the states. But one of the last things that Governor Abbott did on his way out of office, thank you, Governor Abbott, is he filed a lawsuit against the federal government and Homeland Security. And we were able to take that case in January. We went to district court. And by February, we had a preliminary injunction stopping that executive action from going into place. So we have continued that type of fight. And again, this is an example not just about immigration policy. It's about a president who is changing law outside of his constitutional authority. So we have constitutional issues, we have violations of federal law, and this is the practice that's continuing. More recently, in March, we sued the Labor Department related to Family Medical Leave Act change that the Labor Department had made, which would have affected all employers over 50. We had a choice. We could let it happen. We could wait to be sued. We took the opposite approach. We sued the federal government again. I watched him do it so long, I kind of know how to do it. We sued him again, and again, we were successful in getting a preliminary injunction, at least stopping the implementation of this change in the Family Medical Leave Act. So, by the way, I have to note, we filed that lawsuit in Wichita Falls. We thought that would be a great place for the Department of Justice lawyers to spend their summer. So. Well, I just want you to know we are in the fight for our lives, and it truly appears that the President of the United States is ignoring Congress. He's going around Congress, creating new laws, and we're going to be in the fight of our lives for the next 2 years. And I just want you to know that this organization has stood with us, protecting the Constitution, fighting for the 10th Amendment, fighting for separation of powers, fighting for liberty. And I appreciate each of you for what you've done to make this happen, and for supporting this organization, and supporting constitutional conservatives as we run for office. Thank you all very much, and God bless you for what you're doing. Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you, Governor Abbott, for setting such a great record over there. And all you have to do is walk in and keep doing it, right? That's terrific. Thank you so much. It is my great pleasure to introduce our 48th governor for the state of Texas, Greg Abbott. And as you know, he was our Attorney General for a long time and would get up, sue the government, federal government, and then go home. And for that, we very much appreciate his work. He was born in Wichita Falls. So he also knows about the Hotter Than Hell 100, which is a race that is waiting for the 100-degree days, for the 100 miles. That's what they have in Wichita Falls. So maybe it'll go up 100 degrees. But anyway, he did grow up in Duncanville and then went to University of Texas and got a degree in the Macomb School. And I think it's fitting that your first really time here, your first probably visit here in the official building is in the Red McCombs Event Center. I think that is just a terrific and appropriate, and we're pleased for that. He's a lawyer and served as a state district judge in Harris County, but also was at the Supreme Court for the state of Texas before becoming AG. And now, please help me welcome our 48th governor for Texas, Greg Abbott.
Well, thank you, Wendy, for the introduction. If I could harken back to a story, this is pretty good. You can use this, Ken. It was hot as HE double toothpicks in Wichita Falls, Texas, as a kid growing up. And there was one July summer day when my mom wanted to show my brother and myself how hot it really was. And we went out to the sidewalk in front of the house. And she cracked an egg open on the sidewalk, and she cooked that egg. And my only hope is that you cook those federal lawyers and make sure we win another case. And to Brooke and to everybody here, congratulations to you on the grand opening of Liberty's new address here in the state of Texas. Liberty, of course, is the powerful force that has elevated both this state and this nation to the very pinnacle of the entire world. Think about it. No country in the history of this world has allowed so many people to start with absolutely nothing and be able to achieve anything. Just look at Jim Leininger, Red McCombs, my long-lost friend Michael Stevens. Sure, they had Cecilia, Kim, and Charlene. They had talent, they worked hard, they had drive, and they were innovative. But on top of all of that, they lived in a state and in a nation that was infused with freedom, that allowed them to pursue their dreams unhindered by a king, a dictator, or an oppressive government. This country and this state have been infused from the very beginning with patriots who understood the necessity of liberty and the vigilance needed to preserve it. Well, as we celebrate this new address of liberty, the fact is our vigilance in preserving that liberty is being tested. You all remember, Ronald Reagan forewarned that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. Our generation confronts that very threat today. And the irony is the threat is not coming from some foreign government or some foreign land. The threat to our freedom is coming from our own government and our own leaders. Your freedom of speech is being threatened by an IRS that will look into and investigate and prosecute those who use their freedom of speech to disagree with the President of the United States of America. Your freedom of religion is threatened by laws that try to coerce Christians and Jews to violate their conscience. The Catholic Little Sisters of the Poor were forced by the President of the United States to choose between a law imposed by the President or the law that the Little Sisters of the Poor believed in following the law of the Lord. Pastors' sermons in Houston, Texas were subpoenaed by their own mayor. And when it comes to threats to liberty, there may be no threat greater than an expanding federal government. Once again, Ronald Reagan had it right when he said, as government expands, liberty contracts. Obamacare and the EPA are just two recent examples of how unrestrained federal government is impinging upon your individual liberties. Obamacare puts government in charge of your lives and your health care. And John Adams reminded us that property must be sacred if liberty is to exist. And yet, as we speak, the EPA is trying to regulate ditches on your private property. The lives of bugs and lizards trump the liberty of private property owners. And now, even cities in Texas claim that they have a right to the property interest that you have in the trees on your own private property. Maybe worst of all, there is no liberty if there is no rule of law. If we become a nation of men rather than a nation of laws, then every liberty we have is subject to the caprice of the men who rule this nation. As Ken Paxton rightly pointed out, the president has repeatedly disregarded the laws of this nation for his own partisan gain. As just one example, the Supreme Court rightly rebuked the president for circumventing the Constitution and making recess appointments at a time when the United States Senate was not in recess. And now the president is once again showing disdain for our Constitution with his illegal executive order, rewriting the immigration laws of this country. Well, my friends, we are at a time of crisis, and Texas must lead the way out of these times of crisis. We have to fight our way through a thicket of growing government oppression, using liberty as both the saber that will cut the pathway clear, as well as the compass that will point the direction in which we are to go. And Texas is leading by example. We believe that you should have the liberty to choose your own health care. That is why on the very day the president signed Obamacare into law, Texas was in court suing to stop the imposition of that law. Obamacare denies patients the freedom to choose their own doctor. We will continue fighting for a healthcare system that puts medical decisions in the hands of patients and doctors, not bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. And instead of a federal government that wages a war on our religious liberties, Texas has fought to defend those sacred rights. When atheists tried to purge God from the public square, we defended the Ten Commandments monument. We defended one nation under God in the Pledge of Allegiance. We defended the Kuntz cheerleaders who chose to put Bible verses on banners. And we defended marriages between one man and one woman because God's law cannot be undone by man's law. And instead of a federal government that is working this day to try to restrict your Second Amendment rights, Texas is working this day to expand your Second Amendment rights by ensuring that Texas becomes an open carry state. Texas believes that parents should have the liberty to educate their children the way they see best. Instead of a federal government that is trying to control school curriculum through mandates, Texas has outlawed Common Core. And now we're working to give parents even more freedom by giving them the power to choose the school that is best for their child. Instead of a federal government that is mortgaging the future of our children by sinking us into more than $18 trillion in debt, we're working this very day to put together a spending cap on government in the state of Texas. We're working to ensure that we leave billions of dollars in the rainy day fund, and we are going to cut your taxes by more than $4 billion by the time this legislative session is over. And instead of a president who rewards lawlessness, Texas is doing what the federal government has refused to do. Texas is going to step up and put in the resources needed to ensure that we secure our border. Texas will enforce the rule of law, not reward lawlessness. Washington seems to define success by the number of people who are dependent on government. In Texas, we define success by the number of people who get jobs in the private sector. The president apologizes for American exceptionalism. Texans achieve that exceptionalism every single day, and we never apologize for it. Texas is what America is supposed to be, where liberty is more than just a catchphrase, where liberty is a governing principle. It is time to reclaim the Constitution that guarantees our liberty, and Texas must lead that pathway. As Americans' liberty is threatened by an overreaching federal government, those Americans have a Texas to turn to. America needs Texas. If we lose Texas, we lose America. America still is the indispensable nation in this world, and Texas is the indispensable state in this nation. So as we gather in joy to open the doors to the new address for liberty, there is time for celebration. Celebration for all that you all have accomplished in helping Texas to become the dynamic leader of this nation. But it is also time for us to redouble our efforts. We have a country and a constitution we must restore, and we need TPPF to help us get that job done. Thank you. God bless you all, and may God continue to bless the great state of Texas.
Thank you, Governor, for always so eloquently stating the cause ahead. And we're so appreciative for your leadership. And everything you mentioned in your speech rings so true with everyone in this room and the battles that are ahead. And with you leading the way, I think the future is surpassingly bright. So thank you for your leadership. In closing, just a couple of things. I want to ask our board to stand just briefly. All the board members of TPPF who are here. I've got George Strake, Linda McCall, Ernie Angelo, Jim Leininger, Chaz Neely, Wendy Graham, of course, Stacy Hawk, our newest member, Wendy Grimes, Rick Fletcher, Kyle Stallings. This organization is what it is today because of the extraordinary leadership of these men and women. So please help me thank our board of directors. They're just an amazing group of people. It has to go, of course, I have to say, our incredible staff, who many of us were here last night at midnight, 1 in the morning, cleaning tables and hoping and praying everything would work. And they do such a great job. They all couldn't be with us in this room today because we wouldn't have room. But if I could have the staff that is here with us today stand and be recognized for your amazing work. And the ones in the back waving too. It is an honor to continue to work with you. It really is. And you know, it's a place, I joke about the $400 in M&Ms, but I really wasn't joking. I really would have sent them back, and we would have gotten the fake ones from Sam's. But it was too late. But we are an organization that works every day to make sure that every dollar is appropriately spent for liberty. And as Governor Abbott was speaking, I had a great view of this podium. And I thought you may be interested to know that I actually bought this podium and the one that's down in the amphitheater about 10 years ago, honey, for $40. And it went in our garage. And Mark Rollins said, "Why do we have 2 podiums in our garage?" And I said, "Well, someday we will be using these podiums," didn't I? Isn't this a true story? "We will be using these podiums for greatness." And through the 10 years, we tried to sell them a few times in the garage sales. And no one really wanted them, but it sort of all has come full circle. And while we are in a beautiful building, and while every detail was studied and discussed, and I was, very wanted to be part of making sure this building rose to the level of having a Red McComb's name, having Dr. Jim's plaque on the front walk as you walk in, of honoring Michael Stevens, that we made absolute sure that what we have today truly will stand the test of time and is the permanent marker for liberty, but it is done in a way that is always, always recognizing what the important way is to spend the dollar. So I thank you for that. You know, when Alexis de Tocqueville came to America almost 200 years ago, he saw citizens engaging with one another in the essential tasks of democracy. Not just voting and not just organizing parties, but forming what he called the infinity of associations that permeate our lives, that distinguish us from every other people on earth. Nearly a half-century before, Edmund Burke made a similar observation, that the little platoons of a free society were its indispensable supports. De Tocqueville, of course, said of his fellow Frenchmen, not surprising, that when they saw a problem, they were apt to hope that the government would come to solve it. They were apt to hope that some committee or some official would come and dictate the solution for all. But the Americans, by contrast, would get together, organize, and do it themselves. They would do it through neighborhoods, through churches, through parties, through associations, and through charitable organizations. Through the enduring and intricate web that bound neighbor to neighbor, Americans would weave the civic tapestry that sustained our liberty. This is how we understand the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and this is how we understand all of you who support us, who work with us, and even those on the other side who contend with us. We are classically American in the expression and the understanding of freedom. And when we do our work, and when we conduct our research, and when we face our opponents in civil disagreement, we do so with roots that extend down to the very depths of the very beginning of the United States of America. We are bound by principle, inspired by liberty, grounded in history, and moved by a great love, a love for our state, a love for our children, a love for our neighbors, and a love for everything that made this country great. Let me just say in closing that this building is not a monument to the last 25 years of TPPF. It's not a great edifice to celebrate the influence or achievement that we've attained in the last decade or 25 years. That this is not the end, and it's not even the beginning of the end. But it is, as Churchill would say, the end of the beginning. We did not build this building because of what we have done. We built this building because we have so much more to do. We did not build this building to talk about how great we are and rest on our laurels. We built this building to go and do new and better things in the name of those who have gone before us. And we did not build this building because the work of liberty is finished in Texas. We've got these great elected officials and we're done. We built this building because the work for liberty has only just begun. You know, I look back again on these 25 years and the more than a decade that I've been involved in, 15 years in public policy in Austin. And you know, across every city, and especially every capital city in our country, you will find that where power resides, where money is distributed, where the base human impulses of control are apportioned, you will find headquarters there of buildings of those who oppose liberty and of those who would profit from opposing it. And even in our beloved Texas, you can look a few blocks away and find a few of those buildings. But until today, there was no one place for the advocates of freedom. Until today, there was no headquarters for liberty. And until today, there was no fixed location for the font of ideas that will sustain our free republic. And all that changes today. Today, we open the Michael Stevens Building for Business. Today, we welcome the finest minds and the most distinguished leaders in Texas policy, civic life, and business here today to witness this great event. And today is a good day. But tomorrow is even more important, because tomorrow is when the real work begins. I look out on all of you today, our allies, our supporters, our colleagues, my colleagues right here in this room, and I feel pride and gratitude, and I'm so grateful, and you hear me say this over and over. But above all else, I feel hope. I am hopeful because in seeing you, I don't just see today, I am seeing into the Texas of tomorrow and into every tomorrow after that one. And let me tell you, it is surpassingly bright. It is surpassingly bright for the next Red McCombs from Spur, Texas. It is surpassingly bright for the next Dr. Jim Leininger, who has an idea to invent a hospital bed. It is surpassingly bright for Chaz Neely with a little steel company in San Antonio. And more importantly, it is surpassingly bright for all of our children and our grandchildren, for Luke, Jake, Anna, and Lily Rollins. Thank you. God bless Texas. God bless America, and let's move forward. Thank you so much for joining us today.